Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Wednesday, March 4th, 2015. Can I have the roll call, please?
Salem Derby, Van Hagen,
Present.
Jennifer Hayes, J.P. Krasinski.
Here.
Joe McCoy. Here. Dan Rist.
Here.
Tamara Smith. Here. Joy Winnie.
Here.
Nathan Ziegler.
We all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of February 18th?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, a second approval of minutes of February 18th. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained?
Abstain.
And one abstentions, okay. Public speak time. If there's anyone here from the public who would like to address the council, something other than, actually, we have nothing on the public, on the public hearings tonight, but anyone want to address the council? Not seeing anyone. Communications from elected officials, boards, committee, and correspondence. Councilor Krasinski, I believe you have something for us?
I found out that East Hampton is going to have a first, and I was really excited and wanted to share this with everybody. It is an East Hampton Book Fest that's coming up April 11th. And there are going to be at least 7 different venues involved in this, from Flywheel to the Eastworks to White Square Books at 86 Cottage Street and the Abandoned Building Brewery and Luthier's, and Hallway at Eastworks. So they're going to have events for children, young people, and for adults. A zine fest. Now, this is one I've never heard of before. I don't know if anyone else has. A zine fest is where I guess you make magazines, and I understand 300 people have already signed up for that. Wow. There also will be storytellers, lots of authors are going to come to East Hampton, and there will also be Wild Irish Women dancing. That's my understanding. Wild Irish Women, James Joyce. Reservations are required. That's in the evening. And at the Abandoned Building Brewery, there'll be poems and pints with literary trivia contests. So this sounds like an event, kids, adults.
Creative.
Sounds like fun. And in East Hampton First, that's Saturday, April 11th.
Okay. Thank you for that information. That's terrific. Mayor Communications, Mayor Cadger.
I'm not going to top that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Good evening. So I have, as you know, a few things on tonight's agenda. I'm assuming that you would be sending them to subcommittee so that you could have some lengthy discussions on them. So I don't know if you wanted to go over them at all, but as you can see, one is to remove the housing restriction for affordable housing on the 154 Everett Street property, and the other is to accept Section 260, Chapter 165, so that teachers' health insurance can be counted as a non-net spending, net spending, so, to switch it.
I just have a quick question, because we were talking before the meeting started. Refresh our memory on that property. I think that was one of the first topics I ever worked with as a city councilor, was that property. I believe it's the same one I'm thinking.
It is.
That's back. Okay.
It is, because I remember it since when I got here, and I used to refer to it as the Hannafin property. So does it? Yeah. So it is the same property.
Okay. And didn't Habitat for Humanity?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. It was going to be sold to Habitat for Humanity for $1. And that deal never ended up coming to fruition. We're very sad about it, as they are. They're just, their projects, they're just overexpended on projects. As you know, they're doing the one on East Street. And we've been talking with them over many years, what's their timeline, and it was supposed to be last year, the year before that. So we had a meeting, and they said, we've just got to tell you, we're, sad about this, but our timeline is many years in the future. So it's, this particular property is an eyesore. If it was the land uncleared on East Street, wouldn't have been a problem. We could leave that sitting there like that forever, till they got around to doing that project. But this is, it's a blight right in the middle of the street. So we'd like to get it cleaned up, and it's, not a large parcel. So that's why we figured if we take the affordable restriction off it, we can just auction it off.
Okay.
We have some other tax title, at least one other tax title property that we'll be needing to auction off, which this was originally a tax title property. So we figured we could do them together.
Okay. Again, I think probably, as you said, more discussion will come, but if anyone has any quick questions for the mayor concerning that property. Okay, no, and I guess you can move on. Is there anything you want to say about the second issue, the insurance? teachers?
Nope, that's just a matter of, the only thing I do want to say with it, and it is, included in your packet, and I have a lot of information on it, and I know you'll go into, some lengthy discussions, but there is a deadline. If you're going to accept it, it has to be accepted by June 1 of this year, or it's gone. So it doesn't come back, it doesn't come around every year, that's it. So it's a little bit, the way we think, it's a little protection for the city in the future. We haven't had to have it that way, but when we, at some point in time, I mean, we're a very lucky community in a lot of ways. We're very supportive of our schools. So we have been always providing more than the mandated amount to our schools. This year alone was a huge amount. It was like over $800,000 than what's mandated. But, at one point in time, that's, we're not, in this point, we're not counting the retirees' health and teachers' retirees' health insurance. So at some point in time, to have it, between non-net and net is going to make a difference. And it might make the difference in the future of meeting the mandate. So it's very important. But the deadline is crucial on that. And, we've done a lot of talking about it, a lot of thinking about it, a lot of discussion about it, and research. And, actually, on top of it, Melissa, our finance director, has, we had some concerns. Will it change our Chapter 70 allocations? And we've been, told no, it won't change any of our receipts. But to me, it's protection for the city for the future.
Okay. And as I said, we can certainly get into this in more detail in subcommittee level.
I'm sure.
Okay.
So, would you like any more news tonight, or is that enough for you?
No, if you have more for us, we'll take it.
Okay, so starting off, it's a little bit more of a positive note. I received a lot of information from the Mass Municipal Association, who everybody's familiar with, is just such a responsible association, and after the legislators to protect us in all different things. Right now, I've signed on to. They had the mayor sign on to 2 letters, one to the state and one to the federal leaders, and it's basically asking for relief for in support of the governor's request, so that we can get some snow relief. Technically, the storms that we had, we wouldn't be eligible for anything. No FEMA fund, no federal funds, no state funds. So what these letters are is basically supporting the governor's request and having all the mayors sign on and asking them to please consider the request, but also in the past it's always been per storm. This storm hit, was a state of emergency and reached a certain amount of dollars. What they're asking for in this, actually, everyone's pretty much saying the same thing. There's no way we could have predicted, winter storms like this. Everybody's budgets are out of whack. There isn't any city or town that hasn't been affected by these. So it isn't anything that we could have anticipated. So they want to treat it as a season instead of per storm. So all the storms from January through February would be included in a storm reimbursement. And when they are reimbursed in the past, they would be, they're hoping for a 75% reimbursement, but that would be lovely. But it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
So so I've signed on to every letter. And then there's another survey that I received also from the Mass Municipal Association for the mayors. And I filled that out. What they're looking for, too, is to show how drastic the damage is. I think everybody pretty much knows. I mean, you've heard on the news, what the different areas are paying. But for us, I think it's especially hard for us, smaller communities. Last year was our largest snow deficit that anybody could remember. Well, already, not counting this, by the way, the storm we had last night, not counting that, we've already hit over 200,000 more than last year. Now, last year's actual spending was just about 500,000, and as you know, we budget 115. So that's a wallop. So this year we're at 612. So that is a huge hit, because what we all know is it comes right off our 16 budget, right off the top. So that's started off being a little good news, hoping we'll get something back. We'll keep our fingers crossed, doing everything we can on that. Anything they want us to fill out, we're filling it out, signing on, sending it in there. So that takes us to that part. The next part is, today, the governor's budget came out, so I don't know how much you followed on that. And again, these are the things that are, they cause me so much concern, but I think what really bothers me is the misconceptions. When you hear so much about, the increases, what our local aid has increased in, and that type of thing. Well, so what we did is I pulled out a copy of last year's, everything we had for last year. And what does happen is we do, and this year, and these are just the governor's numbers, which are usually the best numbers of all. They kind of get picked and choose from there. This year, I'm not so sure that can happen, because I don't know how much more picking and chopping that the House and the Senate can do. So, and they're very supportive of not touching local aid. Well, local aid for us, it sounded wonderful when I first started, looking at the numbers this afternoon. It's like, oh, geez, on local aid, we're up 154,000. And then came page 2. I wish I never saw page 2. Page 2 was the assessments. Our assessments, which are our expenses, increased by 420. So, again, there's 300,000 that we're behind. So that's less this year than last year. So it's not going to be a good year. Anything else anyone would like to talk about?
It's almost spring.
It is almost spring. So I just want everybody to be prepared, as far as the budget. I know, we do the best when, and again, I always use the expression, last year with Melissa and I, when I say blood, sweat, and tears, I mean it. And I know the counselors go over it, set up the meetings, go over it line by line, and, unfortunately, there's not usually anything to cut from it. So it's going to be just what I anticipated, an extremely difficult year. I was hoping to be wrong. I was hoping that, because, how could it be worse than last year? Well, it already is. We're already in the hole by the snow and then our assessments. So, we're going into it with a huge decrease. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I will move that the affordable housing restriction on property at 154 Everett Street be moved to property, and that the request for Chapter Section 260 of 165 Acts of 2014 Teachers' Health Insurance be moved to finance for review.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to move both those read topics to subcommittees Property and Finance. Additional comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Moving now to standing committees, Rules and Government Relations, Councilor Rist.
No report.
Finance, Councilor Hagan.
Finance, our agenda is clean until new business,
Why should you do that now then?
and so I'll do that. But our next meeting will be next Wednesday, March 11th, at 6 p.m. in room 1. And under new business, we have 4 requests for appropriations. I'll do a first reading. The first is an interdepartmental transfer dated February 25th, 2015. The request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $7,900 to be transferred from the reserve fund and transferred to the following: ambulance professional services, $3,000, ambulance equipment repair, $1,000, ambulance medical supplies, $900, and fire department equipment repair, $3,000. The amount requested to be used for the following purpose: to fund unanticipated expenditures in the ambulance and fire departments. The second appropriation is a supplemental appropriation dated February 26th, 2015. Request is hereby made for the following appropriation. The amount requested is $29,140 to be appropriated from the enterprise retained earnings, free cash. Enterprise retained earnings in the amount of $19,426.67 and free cash of $9,713.33, making a total of $29,140. And that would be appropriated to the DPW vehicle capital in that amount, $29,140. And the amount requested to be used for the following purpose: to provide funds to replace and recycle the DPW director's vehicle. The next supplemental appropriation dated February 25th are two CPA requests. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $415,120, and it would be appropriated from CPA undesignated fund, and that amount, $415,120, and appropriated to the following: Nonotuck Park Soccer Complex, $230,120, and Brickyard Brook Conservation Area in the amount of $185,000, for that total of $415,120. The amount request be used for the following purpose: to fund recreational improvements to Nonotuck Park Soccer Complex and the Brickyard Brook Conservation Area. And the final supplemental appropriation dated February 26th reads as follows. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $41,000 to be appropriated from free cash, in that amount, $41,000, and appropriated to police vehicle capital, $41,000. The amount requested be used for the following purpose: to provide funds for the replacement of one marked line cruiser for the police department. And in the form of a motion, I would request that all four of those appropriations, the one interdepartmental transfer and the three supplemental appropriations, be forwarded to finance for review.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to move the interdepartmental transfer and the three supplemental appropriations to finance. Any additional discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And that concludes finance.
Okay, and I guess you're standing in for public safety tonight? is it?
Yes, public safety, the two remaining, which have been ongoing a while, we've had several hearings, are the request for street acceptances of Paul Street Extension and the overall review of the street acceptances. And I believe Chairwoman Hayes has been still in contact with a few more departments to get their final recommendations before she moves a formal recommendation to the full council.
Okay,
And the next meeting will be determined.
okay. Thank you. Appointments, Counselor Winnie.
Thank you. We met tonight at 5:30 downstairs. Two appointments the mayor has put forth. I was not there, but the two committee members that were there voted on the two nominations. So I will make this in the form of a motion that the city council appoint Angelique Baker to the Commission on Disability with their term of expiration of December 31st, 2017, and Thomas E. Gallivan to the Veterans Council with the expiration date of December 31st, 2015.
Is there a second? Okay, a motion and a second for the approval of Angelique Baker and Tom Galvin as mayoral appointments. Any additional comments or discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be March 18th at 5:30 downstairs, and we will be reviewing two appointments in the new business, if you would like me to. Okay, so I move that we send the two mayoral appointments to the appointment subcommittee of Colleen Pusa for the Conservation Commission and Margaret Solis to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member.
Okay, a motion and a second to move the appointments of Colleen Puzis and Margaret Solis to appointments. Additional comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And I think that does it for my report tonight. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ordinance, Councilor Smith.
The ordinance subcommittee held a public hearing, a joint public hearing with the planning board on February 18th. It was actually directly after the last city council meeting. And the purpose of that public hearing was to hear public speak time on the issue of limiting the square footage in retail stores in East Hampton. I say retail stores, but that's actually part of the amendment. The original proposal was for all buildings of 50,000 square feet. And at that joint hearing with the planning board, there were a number of recommendations that limited what type of building would be limited to 50,000 square foot. So that meeting was really just an opportunity to hear from the public, and we'll be meeting again at a date once I'm able to talk with both Salem Derby and Nate Ziegler, the other two ordinance committee members, to set a new date. So.
No, I got the impression that the planning board also, will probably be an additional joint public hearings, you suspect?
There were, I'm not sure if we're having an additional joint public hearing or not, or if that was the only joint public hearing, so I don't want to confirm that.
Okay. Okay.
And that's the only new news that I have since the last time we met.
Okay.
So that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. There's nothing under property. And we've done old business and we've done new business. So unless I've overlooked something, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, second adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. See you in a couple weeks. Thank you.